So I'm going to go ahead and walk us through setting up a quick 2D project within the Unity engine. So first go to unity3d.com, click on the download link in the top right corner, and then download Unity 4.0.1. Once you get that downloaded, do a full install, open it up, you'll end up with an editor like this. Go ahead and create a new project. Give it a name, whatever you want. We don't have to import any packages right now. We can do that later if we want. Loading up. Okay, so first thing, here's our camera. And notice right now we're in perspective mode. We're actually going to switch to orthographic, which lets us use that orthogonal plane to create a 2D game inside of a 3D environment. And I went and I changed it to back up here. So now we have an X and a Y axis, and then the Z goes into our computer screen from this current perspective. From here, if you want to save, you will save to your assets. These would be your levels. We won't mess with that right now. So first thing, let's create an object. Let's go to Game Object, Create Other. Let's start with the cube. So it's now drawn a cube for us here in the middle of the screen. You can see it here, select it. You can move it around the X and Y axis. If you grab the arrows, you move just that. Just on that plane, in that direction. So let's make our cube. Well, first things first, if we look at our camera, we'll see that our Z is set to -10. So this means that our camera has a Z index of -10. So if we hit the play button at any point in your development, you can hit play. You can see we have our little cube there. It's just showing up as a square because of our orthogonal view. And so our cube right now has a Z index of -0.04. So it's going to be visible because it has a higher index than our camera, which is -10. I'm going to set the cube to 1 just to make it a little clearer to me about where things are positioned. So all of my objects are going to be on an X and Y coordinate and a Z index of 1 for the most part. So that will allow us to make sure that things, when they collide, they're in fact colliding on that Z index of 1. Okay, so our cube is pretty small right now. To change that, we can adjust the scale. I'm going to set it to 10 by 10 by 10. We now have a larger cube. You'll notice down here there's a size. This is the size for the box collider. On the right hand side, this inspector view, these are the different components. So right now we have a transform component, a cube component, a collider component, and a mesh render component. So our box collider is actually what we're going to use to detect collisions between different objects. We'll worry about that later. But adjusting the size here would adjust the size of the box around the object. So if I were to set these to 2, you notice that my collision size is now greater than the actual size of the object. So you can use that to adjust things so that they maybe collide earlier or later than they would normally. We don't need to worry about that too much for now. I'll just leave that at 1. So we've got our bigger box. So now if we run our project, we've just got a cube, not too exciting. Let's add a little bit of behavior. So we're going to add a new component, create a new script. Let's call it movement. We'll do JavaScript. And with this movement script, we'll just add some basic movement to the cube. So double click on it. It'll open up a little editor. You can actually use any editor you want. This is the one that's built into the Unity engine. The default functions, start and update. This is your initialization. This is what's run during every game cycle, every frame update. So let's add some movement. If we look at our Unity editor, we have our transform component. And so we're going to be messing with that one because we want to move it. And so you can see as we move it around, our X and our Y are changing. So what we're going to want to do is we're going to adjust the transform, and maybe we'll just move it along the X axis. Have our cube move. So back to our editor, I'm going to update. So we're going to use transform. Also this editor, the built-in editor, it's nice. It has all of the Unity functions built in with IntelliSense. So we'll do transform. Transform has an X, Y, and a Z, so we're going to transform the position. transform position X, and maybe we'll just increment it like that. So now, if we run our scene here, we'll see that we have some basic movement where it just continues to increment that X value and work along the X-axis. If you look at the bottom here, we have a project view. Here's the hierarchy view, and we can see our different elements on the stage. Here's our actual project view, which is represented by folders in the file structure of the actual operating system. I'm going to create a couple new folders. We'll create one for scripts, move our movement script in there, and then we'll also create one for prefabs. And the prefabs are the predefined reusable objects. So in this case, maybe we'll call this cube a monster. So we'll rename him to monster. And then if you drag him from your hierarchy into your assets, I'm going to put him in the prefabs. We now have this monster prefab that we can reuse. Just want to double check we're still using the correct, still using that movement script that we created in our for our monster prefab. So now if I take our monster prefab, we can add it to our screen. You'll notice here though, it positions it in the correct place where you dropped it on the X and Y axis. The Z axis is a little bit unpredictable, so you'll notice here that we're at negative 416, which is quite a bit less than our negative 10 on our camera, which means that if we run it, it's not going to be visible because it's actually behind the camera. So to make it visible, we just need to make sure that it's greater than that negative 10 of the camera. So giving it a 1 would work appropriately. And I'll give these two other prefabs of the monsters a Z index of 1 as well. Now if I go ahead and play, we should have 4 identical objects with the same behaviors. So from this point, you can really get creative and do whatever you want, add additional components. You'll notice you have all of these different options and sub-options. These are built-in tools, so you don't have to redevelop the game process from the beginning unless you really want to. Then you can go in and write your own effect scripts, for example. Yeah, I think that's a pretty good starting point, and we'll stop this here.